Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Coffee with Mr. G. Our topic this morning is creating a culture of kindness on campus, kind of bullying prevention. It's a big topic across the nation, certainly important to us here. But before we get started, I have a couple of announcements. This Thursday is the Great California Shakeout, and that's a statewide mock earthquake drill where a lot of first responders and hospitals will go through various responses to kind of mock drill. And so we're going to do that on Thursday, 9 a.m., and we'll go through our various responses from search and rescue, command central, first aid, and we'll go through all of our paces and will help us be better trained. We'll send home a reminder that that's happening via email. We'll also send a text blast at some point so that people say, okay, this is how they would communicate with us in a case of an emergency. Also want to point out that Dare to Dream musical is Friday, November 1st. And this is a full-blown...
7th. Yeah,
Oh,
November
7th. 7th.
Yeah.
Thank you for correcting me on that. Yeah, I was thinking the 17th and the 1st. What date is it?
The 7th.
The 7th. All right. Now you got that. I remember I used to teach kindergarten, and sometimes you would make a big exaggeration mistake. So they would always, no, you don't
now
do
they'll
that.
remember.
You know? Anyway, so November 7th.
God's
and
number,
this is
7.
Yeah.
That's God's number.
So this is the first time we've really done a full-blown musical in the fall, and so we're really excited about it. Tickets are available online, and then we're going to have an after party after the performance. We're going to have dessert out on the plaza, and we're kind of kicking it, combining it a little bit with our annual fund giving week. You know Miss Wilson, but we don't sell candy bars. We don't send magazines to pick gifts out of that. We just say, here's what we're trying to raise money for, and just if that resonates with you as parents and friends at Foothill, to just give, and that way 100% of the money goes toward those projects. We need some new gym speakers talking about the performance. Those speakers are very old, I think, and obviously need to be replaced. That's a big ticket item. You're going to be getting information about these things, but choir risers that have safety bars, once you see something, like we realize that kids standing, or even adults sometimes, standing on that top row, it's kind of dangerous. And so we need some new risers that have those safety rails, and that's cool. One of the things that I think the kids are most excited about is we're going to redo the locker rooms.
Yeah.
Now,
really nice.
we're going to redo the bathrooms. We got the money raised for that, so that's going to be in process. But then this, in combination with that, is going to be locker rooms. So we looked at Clemson, we looked at Notre Dame, Oregon, we looked at theirs, and we don't have the space or the money, unless Phil Knight wants to send us a check. We'd be glad to put the Oregon logo up. But anyway, so that's going to be a fun project. Give those kids a nice place. Also, we want to get some study group furniture up in the middle school hallway, maybe even in the younger grades too, because often kids will go out there, maybe for SST, maybe to work on projects, and there's no place to sit. So we think we can make it a really cool hangout and study group areas there. And then the patio awnings out here by the 4th through 8th grade patio, you see the lights are strung out there. Well, those, the ones that were there before just got old, they deteriorated, the wind got beat up by the wind, and they were in bad shape. So it's time to replace those. And so that's one of our projects. And Daryl Wright and Donna have they got a great vision for how that child care room in the primary grades could be better, and including a kitchen for the kids to do cooking, different things. And so new furniture, better ways to organize and store their backpacks and things. So there's a lot of projects, and we can't do it without you parents. It's really important to us. We don't tell people how much they should give. We just say, hey, everybody contributes, and we'll get there. And so we appreciate it. As you get more information about that, there's not going to be a gala, there's not going to be a dinner. When you get more information about that, though, make sure it's only 1 week. So make sure when you get it that you make your donation or contribution right away. We appreciate that. So those are the basic announcements, so thank you for that. Okay, we're going to kind of start from the beginning so that we're going to be recording this and we'll send it out as a refill. So let me just start from the beginning for those here and those online. So welcome to Coffee with Mr. G. Our topic today is creating a culture of kindness. Very important to us. In other words, bullying prevention at FCS and what we do. And the goal of today is to create a better understanding of our school's approach to kindness. We want to kind of unpackage or define a little bit, maybe clarify what's a conflict and what's really bullying. They are two very different things. And then to provide some tips to our families on maybe things they can do at home, especially if your child comes home and says, so-and-so's picking on me or I'm being bullied. So what do you do with that? And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. But what we're doing as a school, I will start with this. And there's posters around the school, and it says this: if you could be anything in this world, be kind. I think that's just so endearing to me. And so creating a culture of kindness is a whole school effort. We got great kids, great families, so we're all in this together. But I think sometimes some things about kindness and anti-bullying is more caught than taught. And let me give an example of that. We teach that every child is gifted at something. And because of that, the kids are comfortable with who they are. There's no comparison like who's got the power. Does the athlete, is it the person in the orchestra or the artist? They say, no, everybody's gifted at something. So our kids, the byproduct, the part that's caught is they're comfortable with who they are. They're comfortable in their own skin. And so there's not all of this comparison and push for power. And they recognize that in others. And I think that's great. And so let's talk, Ms. Wilson, a little bit about how we do kind of the everyday stuff. Maybe sure. the Imago Day, how that comes into it, some classroom guidance things. Can you start us off talking a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah. I think a great foundation to start when we're trying to create a culture of kindness is to start with this biblical concept of Imago Dei, which means image of God. And we believe, and we look at the Bible as truth, that everyone is made in God's image. It says it in Genesis 1:27. So with that kind of becomes our launching pad, our foundation, that if I view you and I see you as an image bearer, then I'm going to treat you like I'm treating God, if you will, right? Even in Psalm 139, it talks about how we're fearfully and wonderfully made. We want our kids to understand that, okay, if the Bible's true and you're wonderfully made, I'm wonderfully made, the people around me are wonderfully made, I should treat them like they're wonderful, right? We know his works full well, and if we know those things, we should act upon them. And so as a school, that's everywhere on our campus. It's part of our Foothill crest, right? It's part of our classroom culture of even teachers create rules and guidelines in their class based off of those concepts. And one highlight that we really anticipate and love to do each year is our Imago Dei ceremonies. Right. And if it's your first time at Foothill, what that looks like is because what you're saying, Mr. G, how we're all gifted, right, in a unique way. And some of that gifting is also character traits that God has just wired and put us together, knit us together in our mother's womb in order to, be kind or be patient, humble, right? And we see all these character traits about God through Scripture. Right. And we know if we are image bearers, then we might have those traits too. And we see that in our students. We do. In fact, that's a fun way for us as educators to have a front row seat in what God's up to through these kids, right? Nice. And so each trimester, right, we have an Imago Dei ceremony, and we recognize a student who might display that character trait of who God is. And
so you say recognize, and there's a sense of celebration.
Yeah.
And I sometimes parents are sitting in the audience and just a tear because they say, that's my kid, and other people see what they see at home, and that's pretty affirming.
Yeah, for sure. And another thing it does is that it takes the pressure off of this effort, or that I have to be a certain way. No, it's just simply who I am, right? Nice. This is how God has made me. Right. And you're right, it should be celebrated. Another thing we do on our campus is it's kind of a new concept that we're trying to not just have our kids be kind,
Right.
That's important. We want to try to equip them to think kindly too.
Think kindly.
And so one of the ways, and a word we like to throw out, is charitable narratives.
Charitable
Yeah,
narratives.
yeah. Charitable meaning generous, and,
Right.
and a narrative is like someone's story.
Right.
So instead of viewing someone and thinking the worst of somebody or assuming the worst, instead a charitable narrative thinks the best of someone. So how do we help our kids, take on that perspective, that mindset, right? And I think a lot of conflict, Mr. G, starts because of an assumption or misunderstanding.
Yeah,
right?
the story that plays in our head, and it may be, like you said, a misunderstanding. Even parents with teachers,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
One of the most important things you can gift a teacher is the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
That's a charitable narrative. Wow, the child comes home, you say, wow, Bob, that concerns me, but they tell you something and you say, but you know what, that doesn't, let me check with the teacher to get clarification or perspective. And that is a generous approach. That's a charitable narrative from a parent toward a teacher, and we want the kids to do the same thing. And so sometimes a child might see somebody like roll their eyes, or the group is laughing, and they begin to think, oh, they're laughing at me, and that may not be the case at all.
Sure.
And so I think that's important, that we give the benefit of the doubt, and we're charitable in the tape that plays in our head.
Yeah, and not only does that benefit the person we're in contact, it benefits us, because we tell ourselves our own lies, right? And it builds up this insecurity, and then it shuts us down. We become less assertive and less confident when we are interacting with our peers, and the less confident or assertive we look to others, the more prone to even bullying, right? That we see often. And so it's a win-win for the, for everyone involved.
And if we could pause for just a moment, because I want you to talk about classroom stuff in just a second.
Sure.
But I just want to say that over the years, we've had different emphasis on anti-bullying, okay? So obviously we're talking about a campus culture, what happens in the classroom. But sometimes we've invited people to speak on our campus at Parent U, talk with our kids, work with our teachers in professional development. But a few years ago, we did an exhibit. Yeah. We felt like we needed to step it up in our anti-bullying instruction, not just more talking, but we created this art exhibit. It was called Bias, Bigotry, and Bullying, One School's Response. And I'm not going to go through this little booklet. We have them in the office if anybody wants one. You could also visit the website, oneschoolsresponse.com. That's our website. We created it hopefully to get some sort of a conversation going in this area. And the idea that are promoted there through immersive art, rooms with different art, not just student art. This was almost like a museum kind of thing. We were kind of museum curators. And basically, there's an art in the booklet, and on the website, you can see pictures of the different rooms, and there's a brief art analysis, and then there's a digging deeper, kind of a biblical explanation of what we would teach here. Now, when we did this exhibit, we did it here one time, we did it on the campus of Western Christian. Some area schools, elementary and middle school, took field trips there. Yeah. Some people contacted us and said, hey, is it okay if I lead my classroom through a virtual tour? And of course, that was the whole reason for it. So I just want to let parents know, that's a great resource. Yeah, even just go through with your child sometime and just say, hey, let's look at this, and you get through. So it goes from, the heart of the problem is a problem of the heart. Yeah. We're capable of incredibly wonderful things, but we have a default towards sometimes the negative and can be mean also. And so I just put that out there so a lot of people don't even know we have that resource. Yeah. And so thank you for giving me a second to talk about that.
Yeah. You mentioned people coming to our school and kind of talking to our kids too. A big person that has really helped us navigate that was Paul Coughlin. He came a few years ago to teach about bullying prevention with our students. And he actually has an organization called the Protectors. And it is what it sounds like. How do we protect either victims, or how how do we protect even people involved, the bystanders? And so we've helped our kids over the years, not just through the exhibit, but how to navigate bullying through professionals in the area, even outside of us, really a third party that can help our kids navigate that. And we even had a chapel that really was restorative when we had Paul Coughlin here, and kids said sorry and apologized, and now we're friends. So
and we would say, oh, we don't see bullying here, but in a context like that, kids were apologizing to each other, because any child might say something mean, or sometimes they might target someone more frequently than is really good, and so it's never good, but a lot came out. We were surprised, but it was so cleansing for us. And I think that this idea, and we'll talk back to the classroom a little bit, but I think this idea, every generation, every new group of kids has to learn it for themselves because of that hardwiring that defaults to the negative and can be mean. And just because peer relationships are challenging and navigating that can be difficult. So we have to help them all along the way.
Yeah. Well, let's get to classroom guidance. I'm really proud of our teachers because talk about a culture of kindness. I mean, the things they do in their classroom are incredible. And if we as parents could be flies on the wall to see all the ways that they're incorporating kindness and integrity and even this Imago Day concept we talked earlier, they do an incredible job. And I want to first talk about just our Bible curriculum. It's called Deep Roots. We adopted it last year. What we love about it, I mean, there's so much to love, really. But one aspect of it is the teachers go through character traits with their students based off of, okay, here's the Bible story of the week, but what character trait can we draw from this? And not only draw, how can we equip you for real life scenarios and role playing and things like that? So some of those character traits look like integrity in 5th grade, and even confidence was a character trait kids are learning, courage, right, willingness. And so there's so many character traits that they go through, so they're not just memorizing memory verses or knowing the Bible story. It's okay, now, like, what does this mean for me? Where's the action piece to it? And so it's neat that our teachers have that resource to walk our students through.
And it's rooted in the Bible, so things like the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do it, and love your neighbors yourself, and those concepts are just, just woven throughout it all.
Yeah, and when you walk into a classroom and you see their only 2 rules are love God, love others, like that's encouraging as a parent, because under that umbrella, you kind of see it covers everything. And so then when something happens, conflict, right? And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. When a conflict happens, because relationships are hard, the teacher is coming from an angle of, did you love God in this moment? Did you love this person in this moment, right? And they can ask those questions. And I think that's what makes a private school, a Christian school, have a one-up from a public school. We have an opportunity to offer a lasting solution. I don't even know how you would navigate conflict and peer relationships without without Jesus, right? And so we come from an angle of, we have the best example we can point to. We can come into this humble, we can come and take ownership instead of blaming, right? And so even our childcare workers, our teachers, Mr. Wright is so good at this as our childcare director. We try to get to the heart, and so I think our teachers in the classroom and on the playground do the best at that.
And we could talk about teaching for transformation, but we've done some other coffees and but I just say that's where it's also reinforced through that framework of teaching. So it talks about image bearers, the Imago Dei. It talks about community building, and there's several through lines or discipleship habits that are reinforced even through the teaching for transformation. So it's really that holistic. There's a lot of things happening in the classroom. But October is anti-bullying month or bullying prevention month. And so let's talk a little bit about what we're doing here. I know you're sending something home, and then we're doing things with the students. Talk to us about that.
Yeah. Well, one new kind of feature we did this year was called the Weekly Stand, which is kind of like set up like a digital newspaper. And it's a play on words, right? It's like a newspaper stand, but we're going to take a stand on what matters, which is kindness, right? And so I've been sending out every Monday a newsletter about different topics regarding bullying. This week was empathy, and we talked about charitable narratives. And there's also some key tips for parents to consider and think about, and even digital spaces and tips for that as well. And there's also access to our One School's response link on those weekly stand updates. So,
thank you for mentioning that, because I don't. There's probably some on the website, but now they have it.
Yeah, they have access to it. And then we've been really pushing and promoting Bullying Prevention Month in our chapels. Elementary just finished one, and some of our junior high students actually talked to the kids,
Nice.
went through some role play scenarios and skits with them, and the kids loved it, right? Even passed out Kindness Matters, medals for the kids to have. So we've been promoting it in chapels. We're going to dive into that in our junior high chapel next week, and that will be more of like a prayer and worship chapel where we want to make restorative. How can we pray together, right? How can we forgive or apologize? And so we're looking forward to that next week as well.
Our kids they grow up like family, like cousins, and sometimes they are cousins.
Yeah.
And families, they go through things, and you have to help your kids, sort through, and you guide them through those things. And so, because it's a close-knit family, we have some of those same issues that families experience in their home.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so it's going to be a good month. You'll even see. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry,
go
real
ahead.
quick, but I was sure you can move on. I know you in those chapels, you have or are going to do a student pledge.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Yeah, so our school, every year, actually, we go through this pledge together in the classrooms. The teachers will go through either slowly or a little bit each day the pledge for anti-bullying. We have some on the tables here. And really what that looks like, we want to go through that with the elementary kids. We want to go through that for the, junior high kids, and really just go over, what does the Bible say about kindness, and how are we supposed to navigate relationships? And we have the kids sign it. We even sometimes put posters up where they sign it on the poster as well.
Yeah.
So it's a really neat opportunity for the kids to really think about it,
And
before
own
they
it.
own it,
And
right?
own it.
Yeah, almost like a contract,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, and we talked about Paul Coughlin and the Protectors, and there's some resources on our website for that. But let's talk a little bit about conflict versus bullying. Okay. So I wrote down here that a disagreement or misunderstanding between peers that can be resolved through communication and empathy. That's a conflict. Now, bullying would be more targeted, repeated, put downs. Maybe it's physical. Maybe it's leveraging relationships.
It could be like an imbalance of power even, right?
Exactly, because usually someone is trying to be the more powerful one or group in these situations. So, but conflict, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And kids need help working through some of those conflicts, because sometimes they get stuck. So let's talk a little about boys versus girls. I'll talk about the boys. Okay.
Sounds good.
Boys are notorious for bantering.
Yes.
And sometimes bantering goes too far. Sometimes it creates a victim. If they're playing sports, bantering might be, talking trash on the basketball court, right? And then there's reaction. You put a move on someone, and then everybody reacts, and you start talking trash. Well, then that can create a victim over, especially ongoing, and so you have to be careful with that. But even friend groups, sometimes they'll tease each other, and they got these little digs, like your own kids have. They know how to push buttons in the family, but they get their own little digs, and that gets a little difficult sometimes because everyone in the friend group assumes that everybody's okay with the little digs that they make, but often there's people in the group that aren't okay with it.
Sure.
But they don't know what to say. They don't know what to do. So that bantering and that friend group. Now, if you step out of that friend group, where that's maybe a little bit more acceptable, not the put downs per se, but you step out of that friend group and you start saying these kinds of things to people you don't have a relationship with, that goes to a whole nother level. So, but the put downs, there's no place for that, right? And if there's one place where a child should be able to go to school, be themselves, free from worry of bullying or put downs or making getting the answer wrong. It should be a Christian school. Yeah. And we really appeal to the kids on that. You come here because you want to be safe and you want to flourish. And so put downs is no place for that. I get pretty worked up on that. But sometimes with boys, sticking with the boys, it can also be physical in nature. That basketball game can all of a sudden, now they're fouling harder, and now there's things, the temperature can rise. But sometimes with boys, it's bantering, put downs, and gets physical.
Yeah.
What about girls?
Yeah. Can I mention something about the boys,
Sure.
though? And
you have two of them. You raised
I
them
do
two
have,
of them.
yeah, I have two of them. Yeah. Well, maybe not so much the boys, but just we notice that and we see it. And one thing I love about our athletic director and PE teacher, Laura McIntyre, we call her Coach Mac, she recognizes that, right? And she is just an awesome coach to help those kids navigate that. And her actual kind of storyline, you know, what she teaches the kids, her motto is people over games.
People over
Yeah,
games.
yeah.
I mean, people are more important
Yeah,
than winning
the
the
game.
recess game,
Right,
which
right.
there's 100 recesses, right? Everyone's the championship, right?
Yeah. But I mean, that's exactly that's the culture that we're trying to not just teach, but we're trying to have them catch and have that in the forefront of their mind. So what a great opportunity that we have a teacher like that who is going to teach them people over games. So I just thought I'd mention that. Let's talk about girls. I think the difference between the girls and boys, not that, you know, sometimes they can kind of change from what they do, but instead of being physical in nature, girls use like leveraging relationships, right? And what that looks like is a rolling of the eyes, right, could lead to, I'm going to exclude that girl from the lunch table. You know, if we get on a group chat and a girl doesn't respond right away, well, we're going to, you know, kick her out. You know, so the gossip and maybe even just one little word, and it leads to insecurities, right? And for girls, we have to be careful because even studies show, even online, especially, that girls are dealing more with anxiety and depression than boys are because they often compare to one another. They care about, you know, kind of their even though we wear uniforms, they're looking at each other's shoes and commenting on it, you know. And that's a big reason why we do uniforms, Mr. G, right? Is it takes away that comparison. And we always say that comparison is a thief of joy. So girls' joy is being taken away when they use opportunities to leverage those relationships. A lot of times what happens too is kids get caught in the middle. Hey, you know, this girl rolled her eyes at me. So why don't you play with me and we're going to exclude her. And then that girl that, you know, is being invited to do that is in the middle. And so then they create these kind of cliques and there's different girls in the middle and it becomes kind of chaotic and toxic. And so that's one way we're trying to help girls navigate that as well.
And sometimes it's not as simple as, oh, don't play with her. Or don't play with him. You know, just stay away from them. Well, we're a small school. We're family. There's no place to go, and they have the same friends. And often sometimes they'll have a on again, off again kind of relationship. So we just have to help them reconcile and those kinds of things. But even in chat rooms as early as even in the elementary grades, sometimes unkind things are said. Who invited her into the chat? You know, and things like that. And so it can lead to really hurt feelings.
One scenario that we see is pretty common, Mr. G, is, you know, there's a group chat and then one girl wasn't able to be on the chat that night because her parent, she had, you know, soccer or, you know, we had, you know, and she's busy. And the next day, people don't talk to her because you didn't respond to my text, right? That's where charitable narratives with girls is especially important, right? Because maybe there's another perspective, another thing that happened, right, to that girl.
So then conflict versus bullying. Well, bullying is more of a repeated, intentional harm. Could be physical, verbal, digital, and then it's where there's an imbalance of power. Who's in control here, and that kind of thing begins to. But one of the ways that we offer our middle school kids is we have an app. It's called Stop It, And kids can report anonymously something that they saw that was not nice or kind or potentially someone being targeted, and it truly is anonymous.
It is.
We don't know who. We can respond to them, but we don't know who it is. And but if we know that someone is stealing someone's fries and bullying them at the tables, and we know, okay, who was taking the fries? This is a fictitious thing, understand. And who was at the table? Now we can investigate. Say, hey, we don't know who reported this, but hey, this is what we heard, and then we can get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
And that's part of the challenge. By the time we hear about something, it's been brewing for a while.
Yeah.
It's that iceberg effect. Something's been going on under the surface, and usually it's multiple things, and then when we get to it, it's kind of getting to kind of a peak there. And then that's when often the parents get in too. So now we have to take some time to unpack that with the kids and figure out where they got stuck, where it went wrong, and then help them through it. And usually you, Ms. Tom, you're very good at that. And the kids are good. They want to get along. And so we kind of help them. And so that Stop It app is really helpful.
Yeah, yeah. It takes away, in junior high, they start to be afraid to speak up. And so this gives them an opportunity to speak up without being called a snitch, right? Or a teacher's pet, right? And going back to the bullying
there's probably a word. They probably have a word for it. It used to be like ratting them out or snitch on them. But they probably got words for that now. But they don't want to do that. And so we're very careful with that. And so, but once we know it, we can help. Yeah. So, okay, so those are kind of some of the dynamics that are happening here. But parents, there's some things that you can do at home. Let me just talk about one thing, and that is just model calm conflict resolution in your home. And you can kind of unpack that yourself there. But also model calm responses when your child comes home with what's happening. Because our first reaction is the mama bear or the react to how could they, or they get upset, and something that could have been said that was mean was not okay, but it doesn't mean it was necessarily bullying. But often someone will say, well, he always says that, or he always does that. So now we got a heightened, our senses are all ready to fight or flight, right? We're ready to fight. And so I think that's an important, remain calm, listen to it, because there's once we understand it better, we can kind of solve it better. For instance, like, give you a story. When the Paul Coughlin was here, we had that chapel. The kids were starting to apologize to each other. And he said, go. If there's somebody you were not nice to, go apologize. Well, a handful of kids went to one student. He was sitting in the back. And it was a little overwhelming. Mr. Gaines was right there. So, and he said to the boy, are you okay? Because people were saying, I'm sorry for what I said to you. And so it looked like he was a target of a lot of kids. And you know what he said? In that moment, he said, it's not them, Mr. Gaines. It's me. What? He said, yeah, I bug people. He said, I don't know when to stop. And so often I just bug them to the point where they get mad and they say something. And so we were able to talk with that child and that family, and he learned to say, I need to back off. He's like the gnat that's flying in your face. At some point, you just smack at the gnat. And so, but what a gift that was to him and his family, that he saw that, and he began to be different. And so, when we understand what's going on, there's more. What's that scripture you always say out of Proverbs? You quote it sometimes.
Yeah, Proverbs 19. It's a good one, and good to have in your toolbox. It says, "A good sense makes someone slow to anger." So, like, if you know all the facts, you have a good sense of what's going on, then you're more prone to be a little bit slower to have that, quick fuse, you know. So that's a good one to remember.
So that fits in with that kind of approach it calmly, but then parents go to the person who's maybe best suited to help. If it's happening in the classroom, you want to talk to the teacher. If it's playground, you want to talk to Mr. Wright or Donna about that. And sometimes the kids, they don't want to tell, and sometimes parents will say, oh, I want to say because I'm afraid someone will take it out on them. We're really, I think, good, skilled at coming to approaching the situation without making someone feel like they're snitching and this and that. Because like if a parent came to me and said, this is what's happening, oh, okay, let me check into this. And we can check into it and say, hey, it was reported to me that such and such is happening. I got the kids there, and I say, oh, it didn't come from the person. It didn't come from them, but someone else told me, right? Yeah. But now it's safe, right? We're getting it out there. Now we're going to, let's have a talk. What's going on? But the child's anonymity is protected, and it is not identified as like a snitch or something.
Sure. I think then, you know, to avoid that too, because kids often are afraid to say something. That's why the Stop It app is really helpful. That's why we like to come alongside people. But that's another thing that parents can do at home is encourage your child to be an upstander, not just a bystander.
Well, what do you mean by that?
So what I mean by that is a bystander is just there, witness, right, what's happening. An upstander is one who kind of gets involved and says, stands up, and says, hey, you know, that wasn't nice how you said that, you know. From the protectors, Paul Coughlin, he actually calls that an alongside standard, really coming alongside. And so parents, I think sometimes kids are afraid to speak up to you, and maybe we don't know. So that's where, especially as the kids get older, teaching them to stand up. And I would encourage them and see if they can find another friend that will do it with them. And we call that the power of two. Because if it's just them being courageous, it's a lot harder, because then the bully or someone can attack you now, and now you're involved, right? You become the victim. But if there's 2 or 3 people who are on the same page with you, that are, you know, seeing this play out too, and you be an upstander together, that can really change. In fact, I think, you know, Paul Coughlin did some research on that, and I think 58% of bullying stops within 6 to 8 seconds when there's this power of two, these upstanders trying to get involved and making us stop. And that can change everything. So parents, encourage your child to, you know, stand up for what's right in that way.
Yeah, or hey, I think we're going too far. Hey, everybody calm down, or, you know, that's not okay. And they can sometimes say, hey, you know what, I think you're hurting his feelings when you're doing that. And so there's good, gracious ways to communicate that without becoming, you know, making yourself a target also. But talk to us about the digital space. We mentioned a little bit early how something happened, but what would you say there?
Yeah. Well, a phrase we throw around a lot is delay is the way. Because conflict and even relationships are so difficult, and they're so they're tricky to navigate, and we're also interacting with kids that don't have the prefrontal cortex or the, you know, amygdala, which is the emotion regulation part of our brain. That's not developed in junior K through 8th grade. It takes a long time. So if you think of it that way, if kids can't even have their brain developed in, you know, in-person reactions, how much more so in an online space will they have a tricky time navigating relationships? And one thing about like communication we talk about too is kids really only hear like 7% of our words. Right?
7.
The other percentage is our tone. They only pick up about 38%, and our body language is 55%.
Okay.
And I'm sharing that because now in an online space, you take the tone,
Which
you take the body language out of it, and you just have the words.
Yeah.
And so then online, an easy phrase like, how you doing or whatever can really be switched if you don't know the tone behind it, or so kids don't know how to navigate that, right? Even in person. Right. So now it becomes even more difficult online.
So even something that may not have been what was intended, what was texted or in the chat wasn't intended. It could be misunderstood and create a problem. But sometimes they do say things that they take a lot more not risks, but they're much more bold to say things online they would never say into a person's face.
And here's the thing is, as adults, we do this too. We read an email where we can not see the tone or the body language behind it. And right now we're in a social media space. And if you spend any time on Instagram, there's a culture right now where it could be the most innocent video of a baby. And you go in that comment section, and people will eat that person alive with their words because people forget that there's a person behind the screen. And so adults do that too, right? And it's kind of, and if our teenagers or our preteens are on that social media platform, that's what they're reading. That's where the caught, not taught part is like, okay, they're reading that it's okay to say whatever you want online and make rude comments because, they forget there's a person, behind it.
That's
so we have to be careful.
Monitoring those chats are important, giving a certain amount of time for certain things, and then that's it. I just read an article, it was an online thing where a high school student asked his parent, say, hey, she was due for a new iPhone, right? And he said, can I just get a smartwatch instead? He said, I spent I spent, and they wanted to talk to him because he was a stranger in their own home. And so they went with the smartwatch because you can do a lot with that. And so that was helpful. But what helps us, what often brings something to light is a parent, maybe the child's using their phone or their iPad, and then they see what's happening online, and they bring it to our attention. So monitoring online chats, limiting it, or not even letting them get involved, because back in the day, here I go, things would happen at school, on the play or whatever, but when you went home, you had a respite, you had a refuge. It was, but now things escalate at home because the kids are online commenting about what happened today, maybe pointing out a mistake that a child made or whatever it might be, and now there's no refuge. And that's a big burden.
And think about, as an adult, when you go to work, you're with your coworkers all day.
Right.
I'm sure there's work events throughout the day, right? Every workspace has some kind of relationship. Our kids experience those types of days too. Well, when you get home as an adult from work, what do you want to do? You want to kind of rest. You're not going online to talk to your coworker buddies, right? And so our kids need that too, where they've been with their friends all day. They don't need to continue to chat with them at home at night. They need a time to be offline. And in fact, we all need that reset, like you said, right? It's never helpful to feel like you always have to be on, right?
And parents, this is your responsibility. Your child's future well-being is more important than their current happiness. Set up some of those structures in your home. They will be better for it. Your home will be better for it. And so it's, again, so pay attention, limit it, remove malice, but certainly reinforce that kindness matters even in the online spot.
Yeah, definitely.
So hopefully we covered a lot, and we've given examples, and so we're trying to help cover this holistic through our Bible, through TFT, through our classroom interactions, and the daily discussions that are the steady drip of how important that is. The Imago Dei, those schools doing a lot, but we also know that this is a tricky area, and so we're inviting parents to partner with us, let us know things, and let's approach it with a partnership and a sense of calm and trying to get understanding, so we don't rush to anger, because now we got a better understanding, and we can help kids get unstuck, because that's often what it is. And I think when kids get to that point where they own maybe a mistake they've made, and then they ask for forgiveness, and that's available, that reconciliation, their friendship often is strengthened.
Definitely.
So anyway, so thank you for that. We hope this has been helpful to you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Jusqu'à